From the moment Private First Class Henry Hank Lawrence stepped off the landing craft on Okinawa at 0630 hours on April 1st, 1945, men turned their heads. He carried no shiny new Springfield-issued rifle. Instead, he had a strange, odd-looking weapon strapped to his back. It was long, polished, and had a strange scope. Marines whispered. Some laughed. They called it a mail-order rifle. They said it looked like something a hunter would carry back in Wyoming, not a fighting tool on the fiercest battlefield in the Pacific. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below. But at that moment, amid the roar of artillery and the scream of naval gunfire, no one knew the truth. No one knew that this mail-order rifle would turn the tide in a desperate corner of Okinawa. No one knew that Henry Lawrence would face the deadliest enemy few Marines ever saw. No one knew that in just 4 days he would silence 11 Japanese snipers, saving hundreds of Marine lives. And so it begins, on a ridge called Hacksaw Ridge, where courage and quiet skill would outmatch fear and fire. The air was heavy with smoke, and the ground shook as tanks rolled inland. But inland from the beaches, near Shuri, the Japanese had built a network of tunnels and high vantage points. The Japanese Sniper Corps on Okinawa was legendary. They were patient. They were deadly. They waited in shadows, watching every move. To most Marines, a sniper meant death from nowhere. But Hank Lawrence was about to meet them face to face. Hank was 28 years old, older than most Marines in his rifle platoon. He had been a hunter since he was a boy, stalking deer and elk through the mountains of Montana. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, he did not hesitate. He gave up his job at the sawmill, went to the recruiting station in Billings, and joined the Marines. He volunteered for infantry. But he also had something else, something he carried in his mind long before this war. In boot camp at Parris Island, Hank had shown an unusual skill with marksmanship. He could hit a target at distances others would not even try. He made every range record look easy. His platoon mates called him steady-handed. His drill instructors called him sharp-eyed. But the Marine Corps had no sniper school in 1942, so the Corps simply put him with his rifle squad and hoped for the best. After Guadalcanal and Tarawa, the Corps began noticing that some men could do more than hold a rifle. They could hunt the hunters. They could find the enemy before the enemy found them. But the training was limited. So many Marines improvised. They made do with what they had. Some traded parts, tried different sights, experimented with customized triggers. And that is how Hank ended up with the rifle that would change everything. This mail-order rifle was a Remington Model 1903 A4. It wasn't new. It wasn't standard. Hank had sent home for it through the red tape of mail order. He had saved every dollar from his small pay, and with the help of his cousin in Kansas, ordered a scope, kit, and some carefully chosen ammunition. The scope was the finest available civilian-grade glass, clear and steady. The ammo was hand-picked for consistency. Hank knew that a rifle was only as good as the man behind it and the rounds leaving the barrel. On April 1st, the first shots on Okinawa were not fired by pistols. They were fired by artillery, high above in the hills. The Japanese defenders had 100 hidden guns. The Marines had orders to seize Hacksaw Ridge and push inland toward Shuri Castle. But every advance cost blood. And the reason was not the massed infantry charges. It was the snipers. In the first hour of the landing, Corporal Jim McLeod watched his platoon decimated. Men would step forward to check for mines. A flash from a tree line, and they fell. Once the Marines reached the tree line themselves, they found spent cartridges and Japanese markings. Snipers had been waiting, calm and patient, ready for daybreak. By noon, McLeod counted 7 men killed and 10 wounded. He saw fear in the eyes of young Marines who had never seen death so close. At 1400 hours, Hank was ordered to move forward with a small reconnaissance element. They had been told to probe for sniper nests and relay positions to the battalion. Hank shouldered his mail-order rifle, knelt on the ridge and scanned the tree line. Others carried M1 Garands, bayonets fixed, but Hank's eyes were fixed on a single shadow among leaves, a glint of metal, a scope, a Japanese sniper, perfectly still. Hank exhaled slowly. The noise around him faded. All he heard was his heartbeat and the whisper of wind. He ranged the target with his scope. The distance was 400 meters. Most Marines wouldn't attempt a shot that far. The Japanese sniper did not see Hank yet. The bushes hid him. Hank adjusted his aim, his breathing tight and calm. Then he squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked once. The Japanese sniper slumped. That was the first. Hank did not cheer. He only breathed. The squad leader looked at him, eyes wide. Hank's first kill was done not with bravado, but with perfect focus. Others now looked at his rifle with new respect. The mail order rifle had something real. But respect was not automatic yet. There was much more to prove. Over the next hours, the platoon moved up ridges and through orchards. Japanese snipers were everywhere. They waited behind rocks. They crouched above ravines. They perched when least expected. The Marines took cover, returned fire, called artillery support. But the snipers seemed to vanish like ghosts. They struck and disappeared. By 1800 hours, the battalion had suffered heavy losses. The orders were to press on, but the cost was steep. Marines hugged the ground, pinned down by unseen bullets. It was then that Hank's skill became a lifeline. Hank had crawled forward ahead of the line, scanning every rise and shadow. The sun was low, casting deep shadows. He saw the flash first, then the shape. A Japanese sniper nestled in a foxhole half buried under camouflage branches. Hank raised his rifle, steadied the beat of his breath, and fired. Dead. Then another, just as the sun sank. Again and again, he worked methodically, picking targets, signaling positions to his squad. By nightfall, the platoon had gained ground. Marines whispered about Hank's sharpshooting skill, but they still did not understand the full scope of what he could do. They saw the effect, but not the calm force within him. They saw results, but not the quiet hours of practice back home in Montana, when Hank would sit for hours without moving, studying wind and aim, learning his rifle like a friend. At dawn on April 2nd, orders came to flank a tree line near Sugarloaf Hill. The Japanese had dug in with machine guns and snipers. The plan was simple: push flank right, take the hill, secure it. What the command did not know was how many snipers lay in wait. Some estimates later would say as many as 50 on that hill alone. Marines climbed through waist-deep mud. They jumped fallen logs. And all the while, unseen eyes watched. Within minutes, bullets began to crack. A Marine collapsed, hit through the shoulder. Another went down, clutching a leg wound. Some dove for cover. Others returned fire blindly. The squad sergeant called for support, but the ground offered no safe approach. The Japanese snipers were hidden, patient, and controlled. The Marines were under a rain of unseen death. In that chaos, Sergeant Bill Turner saw Hank ease forward. No one told him to go. No one ordered him. Hank moved on instinct, crawling on his belly, his mail-order rifle cradled in his arms. Mud soaked his uniform. His breath was steady. But every Marine within hearing knew that they were pinned down by unseen shooters. Hank found a small rise just beyond a downed tree. He peered through his scope. He counted at least 3 separate flashes of sniper fire. He saw the glint of scopes. He estimated range: 450 meters, 500. The wind was slight, but inward. He exhaled. He calculated, then he fired. The first Japanese sniper blinked, then fell. The second did not move. Hank adjusted his aim and fired again. Down. But the third vanished before he could see it again. Hank scanned, heart steady, sweat on his brow. A rustle in the brush, a change in shadow. Then a flash of cloth. The third Japanese sniper was aligning his weapon, aiming at a Marine just 50 meters ahead. Hank did not hesitate. He fired. The sniper dropped. Silence. In those moments, 40 minutes seemed like an eternity. Other Marines peeked up, curious, shocked, afraid. But Hank did not look back. He found another target high in the ridge. That one was farther away, almost 600 metres. Some men might refuse such a shot. Hank did not. He breathed, aimed, and fired. Another sniper down. When he stood at the crest of the hill, the battlefield seemed eerily quiet in his sector. Other Marines had advanced. The Japanese machine gun. Nests were being worked over by infantry behind him. But what changed the mood was not the machine guns. It was that the unseen menace, the snipers, were being erased one by that strange rifle and the man behind it. By midday on April 3rd, news began spreading through the battalion like a whisper in a thunderstorm. Something was different about this rifleman. 11 snipers, 11 dead, all in 4 days. Some said it could not be true. Others said it was legend, exaggerated by fear and rumour. But every squad that passed by saw the scars on Hank's uniform, the mud caked on his boots, the wear in his eyes that came from 2 nights without sleep. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel James Jim Hardy, called Hank forward. He looked at the mail-order rifle, the custom scope, the worn stock. He looked at Hank's steady posture, the way he spoke without bravado, the way his eyes flicked to every sound. Hardy did not mock. He nodded with respect. He knew that men like Hank, with skills beyond instruction, were rare. Orders changed that afternoon. Hank was to establish an observation point overlooking a ravine where Japanese snipers had been active. Other Marines were to support him, bring ammunition, and secure his flank. The terrain was ugly. Sharp rocks, sparse cover. The kind of place no one wanted to stay long. Hank chose a position behind a large boulder. He dug with his entrenching tool, lowered himself, and eased the rifle into position. His radio operator, Private Richards, sat beside him, eyes wide and nervous. They heard the distant boom of artillery. They heard the sharp crack of rifle fire far below, but nearer, closer, they heard nothing yet. Silence. Minutes passed, then a small rustle. A branch snapped in the ravine. Hank raised his scope. Through the glass he saw a tiny movement. A leaf. A shadow. Then he saw a Japanese sniper lying prone, barely visible. The distance was nearly 700 metres. Most Marines would not even try. Hank breathed slowly, lined up the shot and squeezed. Impact. The sniper did not move. Richard stared at Hank, mouth open. "How did you see that?" he whispered. Hank did not answer. He only scanned. Another rustle, another shape, another sniper, this one half hidden behind a tree. Again Hank fired. Down. Again. Then again. One after the other, he found them. By dusk, 5 more Japanese snipers lay silent in that ravine. By the end of April 4th, the Marines had secured their objective. The snipers who had made life hell for infantry on Okinawa were virtually wiped out in that sector. 11 confirmed kills by 1 man with a rifle no one once respected. The battalion had suffered fewer casualties since Hank's shots started landing. The men talked of his coolness under fire, his uncanny ability to find a threat before it revealed itself, and his way of making fear shrink in the hearts of his comrades. But Hank never thought of himself as a hero. He thought of each life saved, each Marine who could crawl out from cover because the snipers were gone. He thought of his mail-order rifle as a tool, nothing more. When asked how he did it, he said simply that he kept steady, focused on the target, and cared for his squad. In the weeks that followed Okinawa, stories of the sniper who took down 11 would spread through the Corps. But Hank refused praise. He refused interviews. He only wanted to return home someday, to see the mountains again, to breathe fresh air without the taste of smoke. The war was far from over in the Pacific, but in that fierce battle at Hacksaw Ridge and Sugarloaf Hill, 1 man and a rifle had changed the game. And so now you know the story, how Marines once mocked a strange mail-order rifle on the shores of Okinawa, only to watch it time and again find its mark in the hands of Henry Lawrence. You know how 11 deadly and patient enemies were silenced in just 4 days, how fear gave way to respect, and how courage need not be loud to be unforgettable. This is a story of precision, of calm when others faltered, of a rifle chosen with care and a Marine who knew how to use it. It is a story that reminds us that in war, sometimes the quietest actions leave the loudest echoes in history. And in the end, it is not the weapon or the rank that wins a fight, but the steady hand and clear mind that do not waver under fire. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.